So, do you believe that current food production systems are sustainable?
No, actually I think they're very concerning, particularly if you consider how much the human population is growing, the fact that we're already over 7.5 billion people, the land availability for farming is decreasing, the fact that the demand for meat and fish is increasing, and the effects of climate change are also impacting our food production system.
So why is land availability for agriculture decreasing?
Well, if you think about the fact that 40% of the land on Earth is already taken over by agriculture, and then you think about what the other land is actually being used for, we've got land which is like cities and built-up areas. People need space to live.
Yeah.
We've got deserts, we've got ice sheets, and they're obviously not productive land, so you can't farm using them. We've got mountain ranges, and obviously that makes farming very difficult. You've got temperate and tropical rainforests, but these need to be conserved and protected. And the rate at which we're actually using land for things like cash cropping and biofuels is also taking over a lot of our productive land.
So could you tell me why there's an increase in demand for fish and meat?
Well, obviously there's a growing population, which means there's more people wanting more fish and meat products. But also if you think about countries, they're actually developing more, and the more developed a country becomes, the more money people have, the more they change their eating habits, and also the more reliant they are on meat and fish for protein.
And could you tell me why this is unsustainable?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you think about the fact that meat and fish, they're higher up in the food chain, and the higher up you go in the food chain, the less energy efficient it actually is. You have to think about the fact that you need space to actually farm the animals, but not only that, you have to think about the space that you need to grow the feed that you're actually going to feed to the animals. It's the same if you think about the water. The water, you need to provide the water for the animal, but you also need the water that you're providing to actually grow the feed for the animals. So actually huge amounts of water are needed for animals. Fish are a really good source of protein, but if you look at what we're doing in terms of overfishing, it's catastrophic. I mean, the actual methods that they've got these days in terms of using bottom trawling, nets, they're just highly efficient but very, very destructive, and we're just taking such vast quantities of fish out of the oceans that they haven't got the rate of replenishment to actually replenish.
So what do you think about fish farming? Do you think that's a sustainable option?
Well, aquaculture is actually a really vastly growing business, but some of the methods are questionable. If you actually look at the fish species that are actually being farmed, they're often the ones that are higher up in the food chain, and they require a lot of feed. And the pellets that they actually feed them are made of protein, usually made from smaller fish. And often those smaller fish are actually taken from the ocean, so from wild fishing. And it actually requires several kilograms of feed to actually produce like 1 kilogram of the fish that are farmed.
So not very productive at all then?
No, horrific.
So how are the effects of climate change impacting our food production systems?
Well, there are a number of ways. One of the big things is the cases of extreme weather. We know there are more droughts and more floodings, and obviously these impact the crop growth. There's the biomes that are shifting. So actually, if you think about the biomes and where they are in relation to the equator, they're actually shifting away from the equator. And this means that the areas where we were growing crops are actually changing. And that means in places where they were growing crops previously, that same type of crop might not be able to be grown. So generally overall we're finding that crop yields are actually decreasing, and particularly places that are reliant on seasonal rains, they're very vulnerable to changes in climate change.
Okay, that was good.